All right.
You all set? I'll call this Town of Vinalhaven Board of Selectmen meeting to order for Tuesday, October 29th, 2024. Roll call, Tom Anthony, Don Young, Leslie Dyer, myself, Elizabeth Bunker, and Marjorie Stratton. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Minutes, approve the minutes from the October 15th, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Approve and sign treasurer's warrant number 18.
So moved.
Second.
Where's the other piece of warrant?
All in
Tom's got it.
favor? Communications, none. And we'll go right to 9B, Penobscot Island Air Medical Evacuations Discussion.
Can I say a couple words first?
It's up, yeah.
Just wanted to let, I called Sean like 4 weeks ago or something like that, and indicated where we stood with the ferry service wanting to get out of the evacuation business. And I asked if this was something that they might be able to present an option on. And I went through some of the things that we had talked about in our meetings with the ferry, but the boat that was gonna serve all the islands, which wasn't gonna work. So I asked him to come, what you have to offer, and trying to get a cost benefit analysis and what has to be done.
Perfect. So, I mean, I think that first of all, like, I am not an expert here. We brought some people with us, et cetera, and I don't pretend to know what you all need from sort of a medical evac standpoint. So would love to have this a discussion rather than me just being like, I have the solution, it's airplanes, because I'm not entirely sure that's the case here. There's a couple of different ways that, well, first, let's talk about just numbers, right? So we've done 65 medevacs off of Vinalhaven this year. All obviously daytime, VFR, visual flight rules. Steve can talk about all the IFR versus VFR versus decks and things like that. Not my area of expertise. But we charged the town about $49,000 to date to do that, right? So if you look at like Lifelight had to do those same things, we are about 4% of the cost of like a Lifelight, et cetera. So we are sort of very cost effective. You couldn't spin up a service just to do planes just to do medevacs here, right? If we make $50,000 a year off of medevacs, is about 2-ish% of our total income. It's obviously wrapped into sort of a larger outfit that allows us to do this. Medevacs aren't actually, they're pretty disruptive to what we do, right? If we're basically pushing off flights, planes, et cetera, to get people in and out of these islands. But we obviously do love these islands and want to make sure that we love the islands back, basically. Just a way of introduction, I think probably should have done that first. I'm the owner of Penobscot Island Air. I have a house on Matinicus. That's how I got involved in all of this. I've been there for about 5 years now. Chelsea, Steve. What we can sort of offer here is go back to the days of yore, where we can do night VFR for medevacs off of Vinalhaven. This means so long as the deck is 2,500 feet.
Yeah, it should be, we need either 2,500 feet or landing distance to some land. That's in our operating specifications. We can go a little bit lower, but it depends, you know, these areas, the islands sometimes are clouded, the mainland, and vice versa, so it's gonna vary. Instrument approaches is just out. It's just not gonna work on a 1,500 foot, runway where you have trees all around you. Because instrument approaches, you need fixes and you have to get down to certain altitudes, and you just, with a slanted runway, it's 50 feet wide. It's just too dangerous and not practical. Plus you need the aircraft, and we are VFR aircraft, which you have to get IFR, which goes for paperwork, training. It's a whole different ballgame. And I don't think it'd be practical for your purposes. The only thing I'm thinking of is when the weather is bad, the only option you have is to ferry. So if they get out of it altogether, you're gonna be in trouble either way.
We did look at an IFR platform, there's something called an Islander. It would allow us to basically be VFR to 500 feet, so it would lower the deck of what we could do. That runs for about $1.2 million to $1.3 million. So if you stack that 50,000 versus the 1.2 million, you can see how we don't make business sense of that. Mark was very kind enough to pull numbers for us earlier today. Actually pull them up on my phone, on what you've done as far as medevacs at night, right? So there was 14 total life flights in 2024, 7 were at night, 15 nighttime medevacs, 7 by life flight, 8 by ferry. That is a decrease from 20 life flights last year, 9 were at night. So we're not dealing with a ton of, I guess, nighttime volume here. As you can see, if we've done 65 during the day and only 14 during the night, majority of that. We are able to offer basically medevacs for a lower rate during the day. At night would be a completely different ballgame because we do not have pilots at that point.
Yeah.
The benefit, though, however, is that it is centralized service. So like the boat, where you had one boat that could service all the islands, PIA can do the same in their VFR rules for the islands, right? So we can basically get supply from Islesboro's kind of weird because they have that ferry there, but Matinicus, North Haven, et cetera. You're looking at needing 2 pilots to basically be on call, 1 pilot to fly the plane, another pilot to be the safety flight pilot. So basically, if that flight happened to have an issue, we have another pilot we can put in the air immediately to go help find that plane and work with rescue, et cetera. We also need a dispatcher. The dispatcher is mostly for flight following. So this individual is Sally, if you were to talk to Sally on the phone before. Her job is to make sure everybody gets on to the islands and off the islands, and if who's on the plane, who's not on the plane, et cetera. So it's a sort of a 3-person job. We would need increased training for our pilots. That means that basically lighted runway, just make sure that they can get in here safely and out safely, right? Obviously, we had an incident here a couple of years ago. We do not want to repeat that. So, more training is necessary. If you do the numbers on that, basically taking the per diem pay that we do for everything, reduce it by 75%, and then offer that to the pilots, et cetera, plus like just a 15% overhead of source us ability to do that, that comes out to be about $238,000 a year in costs associated with providing flights to islands for medevac purposes at night. Again, the benefit of that is 10% of the cost of what staffing the boat would be, so that's good. Cons, obviously, that's a decent chunk of change that we understand. If that can be split among islands, et cetera. The problem is that we just can't staff pilots during the night because of a bunch of other FAA rules. So we can't have the same pilots yesterday do the night shift because they have a 14-hour day window of flying, et cetera. So I think that's basically as far as I've gotten. But Don, if you want to.
Yeah, I think that your concerns on cost are legitimate,
Yeah.
okay? But I think that we need to bear in mind that the state, according to what we have heard from other proposals, is prepared to put a significant amount of money in this, not only for the boats, but they've gone off the original 1 boat for, I believe, 1 boat for all the islands to a boat on each island.
Yeah.
These boats are probably gonna be at least $500,000, maybe as much as $1 million a piece. So if they get 1 for each island, and they were also talking, and I'm not sure if they still are talking, about having a couple of $1 million a year for operating costs, because they want out of this business. So we haven't talked to them directly, so this is all second and third hand information. So I guess what I would like to see us do is assuming we can get state aid, and we won't know until we talk to them and they make the decisions, would that be a viable proposition at that point for all the islands? Now, part of that monies could be for the plane, part of that money could be for instrumentations required, and possibly a runway extension, a runway work. But I think that I wouldn't want to rule those things out until we have talked to them, see how badly they want out of the business.
Okay.
And what could we do to, step in and provide the service? And this is not just Vinalhaven, we're talking all the islands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have similar numbers for the other islands as far as?
No, that would be to cover all the islands.
Yeah, no, what I mean is, as far as frequency of use.
Oh, you guys are easily the largest.
I assumed that,
Yeah.
I mean, with the largest population, so it makes sense.
You know, I think North Haven's probably next.
And number 2, Tinnitus would be last.
Tinnitus, it's, just a few a year kind of thing. Islesboro, never, because they have that 15-minute ferry that they
Right.
just put people
Yeah.
on the ferry associated with it. Obviously there is.
Swans Island a little bit.
We haven't been in there a while. There is a strip out there, so if Swans Island wanted to be a part, yeah, absolutely, we could, go back to, we took it off just because we didn't have a ton of people, a ton of demand out there associated with Swans Island.
Well, just in an effort to kind of move things along, we do have a big agenda this evening. I apologize, but
Of course.
what is our goal for this evening? I mean, I appreciate that you all coming. So what is it that the board needs to determine this evening? I mean, that,
I don't think you need to determine anything. I think this is
Okay.
us just raising our hand and saying like, hey, if you
Mhm.
are looking for a way to do night medevacs,
Yeah.
like we exist and we've been have a good record of doing it during the day and also provide that services by night, so long as we are, we're not looking to make a ton of money off of this, but we are looking to make sure the pilots get paid.
right, but you need to extend the airport. I mean,
if you-
the strip needs to be lengthened,
So
and you,
again, it's think about it as it's almost 3 tranches or 2 tranches. Like first tranche is purely just night VFR, where we just have to, you already.
just for a layperson, VFR,
Visual
Visual
flight
flight
rules.
rules
okay,
versus instrument flight rules.
okay,
So we need to make sure that a bunch of trees have been cutting down, that's already been planned.
Right.
Dean is working on that, plus fix the lights and,
The lights, yeah, they have to be, the problem is in the winter time, the snow plows have a way of just like pushing runway lights all over the place. So that would have to be readdressed. They're, most of them are working, but some of them are kicked over, some of them are not on. So
Mhm.
that have to be just upgraded or just repaired.
Mhm.
And then both ends of the runway, Gene Lazar was going to clear for us in September.
I talked with him
And I'm
a
not
couple
really
weeks
sure.
ago, he said he has plans to do that.
In September, he was supposed to, and
Yeah.
I actually was there, we went over what was to be done. And he never showed, and I've called him almost half dozen times, left messages, but, so that would have to be at both ends, and he knows what has to be done. It's just
Correct.
a matter of getting it done.
so that's.
Just for a safer approach, and especially at night. The optimal way to do it would be with an Islander, because if we have a twin, which can land on that short runway, we can get down very low over the water and still be legal and safe. Whereas in a single engine, we have to be higher just because it's one engine. I'm not saying that's the way to go, I'm just saying that would be the optimal.
That's tranche 2. Tranche 2 is the more expensive version, where we would need state funding of some sort in order to purchase a different airplane to actually get it here in Oakland. So you can think about it as basically probability that we will be able to land and get someone out by a medevac. VFR depends on the weather. If we get an Islander, there's more chances of us getting in here in inclement, basically.
It's okay. Maybe it would be good if we communicate and we kind of list out what would be needed in order to even get to that place, and how the town can help.
Sure, I guess I don't know the delineation
Okay.
between the town and sort of
Oh.
state at this stage and like
Okay.
how that all works.
We're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, that's the other point. I mean, you have to be in compliance with Maine Emergency Management, because they have rules too about who can fly.
Yeah, I think it
Patients.
has to do with how you go. We went through multiple, let's say, it was a very challenging time to be able to use PIA
Right.
for an air ambulance. We actually had to have a restricted air ambulance license, and that, since then, that's gone away some. So, then when you start talking about medical planes, the state is gonna want to, there's very specific rules of what you have to carry, who has to staff it, how it's set up.
Sure.
Life Flight's gonna be a butt heads, obviously, obviously they're in it for some money, so, definitely, up for more nighttime coverage too, just, there's sometimes we're still gonna need Life Flight because of the medical
Yeah, of course.
issues. And then there's the times that the weather is not gonna be conducive to anything flying, so.
We don't view them as competitive, basically, because they offer completely different services.
They do, and so all of our Life Flight runs, it's kind of I don't wanna say a skewed number, so some of them may be the nighttime ones, some of them may be based on medical need, and some may just be based on transport need, if you will. They may not, typically wouldn't meet the criteria for a critical flight, but because of our remoteness, that's the only way to get them out of here in a timely fashion. So those numbers, obviously we're at a low number anyways. I think, 15 total this year, probably was a little bit more last year. I can dig more into the 5 and 22.
What's gonna be dwindling, just based on demographics of the population.
Right, but I mean, we used to, they come up, used to fly a lot. It's a lot.
I'm learning that the FAA didn't know about those.
Yeah, years and years ago, that was dicey, coming in with so much box and I remember that. Headlights and all that stuff, but, yeah, definitely would welcome any improvement in that service, absolutely. As always, finding the funding, so,
Yeah, of course.
bottom line, so.
Yeah.
Definitely would help whatever we can to, on our end, to facilitate numbers of picking up whatever we need to do.
Obviously, there's a lot of questions and be answered, but we wouldn't be even considering this if we hadn't had an indication that the state wanted to get out of the nighttime runs and was willing to put some money behind it. So if that's still the case, I think we ought to be pursuing options, and I think personally, you're probably the best one that I see compared to the boat scheme. But I think we really need to figure out how do we determine what the state is prepared to do if we come up with a viable option.
I agree, I think it's a portion, right? I mean, the flying is definitely, we would take flying on boats any day of the week, but it's, what our weather is, that there's those nights and days where it's gonna blow too hard, the visibility's not there, that we've got a plan for that end of it too, so.
I think you're right, Mark. I think as part of this program, if we can get the monies to do these things that need to be done, I can see where we could end up with a lot better service than we have available now.
So you're looking for us to make kind of 2 different proposals?
Well,
Of what you'd like bring to the state to see what they would help with funding, or?
I'm not sure where we go yet, and I think the board needs to talk about this.
I think we need to have a lot more information. This is the first we've all
Yep.
even heard of any of this, so if we need something on paper that we can look at
Yep.
to determine how we proceed, if we do proceed, so that would be my thought.
Yeah, we just didn't want to go through all that work if this was just a complete hard no at the beginning.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
no.
Don't blame me there.
Like I say,
we
we haven't, this is the first that we've heard about this. We have no information other than what's here, that you were gonna be here tonight, so
Okay.
I think it would help us a lot to be able to have some paperwork to look at, and Marjorie also, so
Okay.
if we could
I
all,
can call some of my contacts at the state and see if it's even a viable proposal, because they're saying that they have an interest in providing a boat for North Haven, Vinyl Haven, and Swans, but would they, you know, change their mindset and invest in some, yeah, an alternative? I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I can reach out and see.
That'd be helpful.
I mean, years ago, I worked with Kevin and we got some money into the transportation bond, but it was for working on the airstrips, primarily the Chinnikus. This is years ago. But so it's not unheard of that the legislature will fund work on the island and on the island airports. You know, it's just need to work with legislators and figure out what's available.
Cool.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Nice to
thanks
meet
for
you all.
coming.
We gotta-
Good to meet you. Yeah, it's getting dark.
Yeah, of course.
You guys have arrived?
We do. Just that rickety van over there.
Nice to meet you.
If anyone needs their ride, and I'll take care of the truck.
It's, Chelsea's in the back, there's no seat.
Yep.
Okay, thanks a lot, folks.
Thank you very much.
See ya. Okay, we'll move along to number 6, speakers from the floor.
Is that Gabe wanted to talk? I think?
Gabe's got her hand raised.
Are you, speaking from the floor, Gabe?
Yeah, I'm a speaker from the floor as well tonight. I just wanted to give a quick update. I think you all remember, but back at the beginning of the year, you voted for us to move ahead with a FEMA brick grant that involved Vinyl Haven as an applicant to contract with a consultant or consulting firm to provide what essentially comes down to is like broad engineering support that would help all of the unbridged islands who would participate in this project. Is this sounding familiar to anyone? It involved all 15 unbridged islands, and it was essentially going to involve some cohort learning focused on different challenges that islands are facing, like transportation, water, emergency management, energy, and there would be like cohort learning, and then depending on what the challenges were, sort of engineered design solutions. And it's a resilience building project. I don't know, is this sounding familiar to anyone?
Yes.
Okay, okay, good. All right, well, the information that I wanted to share at this point, and I will provide you with some additional information in writing because there will be sort of the next steps, but we did receive the funding, so we got notification that the project will be funded. So like I said, I'll provide you with more information, but the next steps is doing some paperwork and additional things with FEMA. So that is always a process, as we know. We love FEMA. So I don't know exactly what the timing looks like, but I think our goal is to try to, be able to begin doing the pieces of this project starting, early next year. But I'll keep you posted. But I just wanted to let you know that it did get funded. There'll be some things to go through. I'll work with Marjorie and we'll figure out what information is relevant that we can share and when, but I'll keep you all posted. So I just wanted to thank you for giving us approval to apply for that. And I think it'll be an interesting and exciting and beneficial project.
Okay, great.
That's great news.
Thank you. And you might just as well go right into 7A, downtown project.
Okay, sure. I'm not sure how much more to update. I would say, based on the last time, which was just a couple weeks ago when we talked, we're slow. Again, everything feels very slow, but we did get all of our descoping request information into the Economic Development Administration. So they have it. It's in their hands. Our project manager there said, you know, she'll let us know if she needs more information from us. And then in terms of applying for the USDA grant, you know, we've taken some initial steps toward that, and I'm going to be meeting with essentially like a technical assistance provider that supports potential applicants for this USDA grant. So I'm going to be meeting with him on Thursday just to make sure like the initial steps that we took, which is essentially enrolling in their grant portal, because every federal program has like a different grant portal. So we had to register in there. So it's just all of these logistical pieces of you know, one step at a time. So those are those pieces related to the project. And I believe the last time I spoke with you, we had mentioned that we requested in the descoping with EDA that we would also descope the water main and reduce the size of what we were proposing we would do based on the current budget, but also you know, just to reiterate, if I didn't say before, in speaking with the water district, one of the things that we will do is look out for additional funding opportunities. So if there are some manageable funding options like through the state, we would want to go after those, or we encourage the water district to go after those and support them in that process, so we could do the rest of that main and not do it. So anyway, there's challenges ongoing still always and likely around the corner, but we're persevering, and I think that's kind of the update, unless Marjorie, you can think of anything else.
And we're working on the final amendments to the phase 2, the parking lots. We have a meeting this week, and we'll get back to the engineers. And anyway,
Yeah, thanks for that
that's
part,
that's
Marjorie. I
in
always
the
forget
final
there's other
stages.
parts to this project. Yeah, so that parking lot design, what we're trying to do is get a design to you all to look at that is something that we've all like said, okay, this meets all of the goals that we've heard from people, not just initially in the project stages, but like, you know, up until recently, that the design is going to work in terms of trying to meet at least the majority of needs that have been shared with us. So we're continuing to work on that, and tomorrow's meeting is regarding the impact or essentially looking at water flow. So once if we were to raise the parking lot, as we've discussed, what happens to surrounding areas that are not elevated. So there's been some modeling with storm surge, sea level rise. What does that look like? And so we can then inform the adjacent property owners and make decisions accordingly to what we learned from this modeling. So anyway, that's what I got.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Gabe. 7B, Net Factory Site
Could I
Reuse.
ask about,
I'm sorry?
could I ask about what Gabe just said about the timeline? Did I get it right that the water main will be fixed?
Hopefully, the whole thing has been de-scoped so that the water main, the first part would be the mill race where it's exposed there. How many feet, Gabe? Is it?
300.
330.
330, thank you. And that would be done, and then they proceed with whatever we can get for,
Okay. So
to continue
my
the
hope
rest
is
of it.
that we can do the water main and do the sidewalks at the same time.
Well, the biggest issue with the water main is that exposed pipe that runs from.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, that would be the focus
Okay,
of the de-scoping plan that Gabe was just talking about.
all right.
Because
Yeah.
that is vulnerable to storm surge, and if we could get that done and then continue on with getting bids for the other parts, you know, that, does that make
At least
sense?
we're getting a new water main, or we're getting it fixed.
Yes, but that would be the part that we are mostly concentrating on right now for
That's the
that.
question I asked, just, so at least we're getting that.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, so there's a lot of still unknowns, and I know it's crazy to say this after all of this time, that it just seems ridiculous that there's just one funding obstacle after the next, but it's because the project is costing way more than originally estimated, and so the only way to move it forward is to try to seek additional funding, but retain the funding that we have and say, what can we do with the funding that we do have? And fortunately, the funder is willing to give us the same amount of money and consider us doing less. And so with the water district has, you know, multiple priorities that they need to spend money on. And so putting in much more money to do the entire 900 feet through this initial process is just not going to work for the district. So what can we do with the money that the district has already committed and has determined that the most vulnerable portions, this 330 feet and under the bridges, is what we're proposing to the funder that we would like to do. We don't honestly know anything until we hear back from the funder. We're told that they're willing to consider this and they're going to really try to help us, but as we know so far, like anything is possible, so.
What
Well,
are
also-
our priorities?
Also, the fact that to rip up the entire Main Street to replace the main before we have, you know, the money to do the rest, that comes into play also. But
Okay, you know, I'm just harping on the sidewalks, because that's how this all started out, with the water main and the sidewalks. So my question really is, are we paying additional funds to the engineer because this is taking so long?
No, the cost is the
Mm,
cost. Yeah, like it's still the same cost.
So there's no extra cost because this is taking over? Taking so
No,
long?
I mean, this is, at least, you know, we have a work order that this project falls under, and that work order doesn't change. That's what we've signed with Woodard and Kern. Marjorie, that's my understanding. Is that yours as well?
Yes, I was just, yeah, I can't think of any extra costs that, because, right, we have the work order and the project is still the project.
But we're dumbing down the project. I'm using the term dumbing down because we're taking it down to different phases.
Well, Faye, we're attempting to keep it the same components. We're like reorganizing who's paying for them. So we're hoping to keep everything the same, but because this funder is only going to give us so much money and the cost is so much higher, we're sort of resubmitting to them what we want them to pay for. And then, like I said, our goal would be to work with the water district to figure out another more accessible, sort of easier to obtain funding source, which would have to likely come through the state to fund the rest of the water main. And then we're asking USDA to fund the stormwater portion of the project. So
Okay.
we're not trying to remove components at this point. I just feel like, you know, it's possible in the future, like if we get bad news about descoping, I mean, like I said, we can't promise anything because anything is possible at this point. And when we put the project out to bid, we are ready to go, and then bam, you know, hit the wall again and have to come up with some creative solutions to try to move it forward. That's you know, I think that's the best that we can do if we're you know, moving forward as we initially or originally intended. Don, I saw your hand.
Yeah. I'm assuming that, you have the downtown project, the scope, the original scope. Now, with this funding issue, I'm sure that you're scrambling to get all the money you can, do as much as you can. But I'm assuming do have a priority list. Obviously, number one is the water main, and number 2, 3, and 4, as you get funding available, it'd be interesting, I don't need it right now, but I would like to get some idea what your priorities are with the limited funding you have available.
Okay, I think we've discussed, Gabe's been quite clear on what we're trying to do here. Faye, one more question?
Well, the only question is, I'm really concerned about the main, but the sidewalks, I've seen more people trip, I tripped the other day.
Okay, yes,
And I
and we
just-
understand, everybody understands that the sidewalks are in dire need of being
Yes.
replaced. However, it can't be done until we get, like Gabe is trying to explain, how it's gonna
process.
work. And it's,
So, yeah, I understand the priorities, I just hope that the priorities are taken into consideration of the people of the island. And
Okay.
I say that
I don't
not
think.
being mean.
I don't think that anybody has any thought of not doing something that's keeping the island residents in mind. It's not being done for any other reason than we all know it all needs to be done.
Water main and sidewalk.
But the fact that the amount of money that it's costing is so much higher than when it was first planned due to whatever, just the price of everything has gone up. Nobody's fault. And
We have to
we
live with
just
it and plan
can't,
accordingly.
we just can't do it. The one, like Gabe said, the entire project was so huge that it's for one bidder to come in and bid, millions more than what they estimated, just makes it really difficult. So to de-scope it, hopefully other bidders will come in that want to work on sidewalks and roads. And hopefully that will happen. Okay,
And I just wish
So-
that the project, as you had pointed out to me years ago when it started, that the water main was the main reason, and the sidewalks. Those were your words when I mentioned it years ago. So years have gone by, we still don't have those.
okay. It all has to do with money.
I know.
Okay, so we're gonna
Just
move
pointing
on.
out that
We're
we're
gonna
concerned.
we're moving on. I think
Okay.
everybody understands the problem is money.
As usual.
Okay. I hope there aren't any more. Is everybody clear on what Gabe has been talking about and whatever I've been trying to put up there? Okay,
Yes.
all right, we're gonna move on to 7B. Sam,
Thanks, I'll try to be as fast as I can.
no, you don't have to be fast.
All
but-
right, and Catherine was gonna come, but she couldn't make it, so you gotta listen to just me.
No, that's fine.
So we, the Net Factory Reuse Committee resumed meeting. We've been working all summer in a big capacity, but we stopped meeting in July and August and resumed in September. The last time and I guess actually I'm gonna try to stay on topic. I'm gonna have 4 kind of updates. The first is a progress report on the community survey, which hopefully a lot of you completed. Then a little note about the upcoming environmental assessment timeline
good.
for the property.
Yeah.
And then we had a presentation on TIF, tax increment financing, that was very interesting, so I just want to bring that up. And then finally, just touch on the findings report components and timeline, that, like our final presentation to you guys. So for the community survey, when we last presented to the board, we were beginning the efforts to reach out to the community. And so the committee members, we all divided and conquered, trying to speak personally with as many people and groups around town as we could, to present facts and history of the property, the building and the property that the Net Factory is on, and we discussed ideas for future use as well as concerns people have about whatever becomes of the property. We put info in the wind several weeks in the summer about the property, and then we put the survey out to everyone on social media after we'd had plenty of time to reach out personally. We got 125-ish, a little more than that, surveys completed. I think Gabe and Pat, they did a lot of work kind of combing through all that info. And there were about 125 completed ones,
Oh,
to
good.
go through.
That's
So that's
pretty
pretty good. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's better than if you just put it out there and expected people to answer. So we goaded people a lot this summer. And so Gabe and Pat really mostly analyzed the feedback and found the most common, popular themes in the responses. And that we'll have that in more detail for you guys with our final findings report. We have like numbers broken down of how many times people mention this and that. It's really interesting. And so we'll have that, and that'll help drive our recommendation to you guys, and I'll get to that at the end. Just some highlights from the survey results, and that's gonna be in this week's win too. Many respondents showed strong support for mixed-use development, so more than one thing going on at the property, with a preference for both housing in some capacity and a community center in some capacity. They were mentioned the most. Another popular suggestion was keeping the swap shop there, hopefully. People just really felt strongly that it's working really well there, and it's a great location, and it's a really important service to the town. Other ideas included affordable, multifamily housing, a community center with athletic facilities, more like a rec center, and also considering possibly talking about relocating the town office or the historical society to that, whatever becomes of that property, downtown, which could maybe free up these properties for potential housing opportunities. Just, it was an idea that, you know, kind of kept popping up, among some other things, but we'll include that later. There were a few people who answered with cost concerns. I think most people just really wanted to like say what they really wanted, not think about the cost and think about that later. But some really highlighted that as their top concern for either constructing or maintaining the building. So any questions about the survey? I'll kind of move on from that. Good. Hopefully some of you completed it. So the other topic is the environmental site assessment, phase 2 environmental site assessment. So the status of that is it's scheduled to begin early November. Probably you guys know about that or have mentioned it. It's going to involve soil borings and water testing to detect any contamination in the earth around the property. It includes testing for contaminants like petroleum products from the old Peasley Garage, industrial residues, and determine if there's if development can even happen there. So, because that's going to really determine what we suggest. And the timeline for that is about 60 days to complete the assessment and report the findings. And I want to get to that 60-day is going to cause us a little bit of trouble, but the potential impact of the assessment is it's definitely going to influence what we recommend, especially if there are contaminants we have to address, like if we want to suggest housing or anything like that, that'll really come into play. I'm going to move on from that, except we had one other environmental consideration. At our June meeting, we had a sea level rise and flooding discussion with Hannah Behrens from the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, GMRI. She talked about the impacts of flooding to the site, especially over time. Like, it did make out okay in the January storms. It didn't flood the swap shop, shockingly, but you know, with time, it's definitely on everyone's radar. And the recording of that conversation is on our webpage if anyone's interested in what she had to say. And it's definitely clear whatever development happens, we've got to consider flooding. And I think that's not a surprise to anyone. All right, so that's 2. The third, I just want to talk really quick about TIF. Maybe you guys are like experts on this. TIF stands for Tax Increment Financing. And we had actually at our September meeting, had Dan DeBoard from the Mid-Coast Council of Governments meet with us remotely, and he gave us like TIF 101. And it was really interesting. I was kind of lost for a bit, and then he got me back. And so for someone who really doesn't understand a lot of that, like adulting and taxing and all that, he really explained it really well. If anyone's interested in that, that's also recorded on our September meeting, and you can find that on our webpage. But we definitely suggest like he come talk to the board if you all are interested in that, because it really could help with maybe this downtown plan and the net factory and other things. But just to give you a little highlights of Dan's presentation was that TIF, tax increment financing, it enables the town to capture new property tax revenue from increased property values within a designated district. Like the net factory could be called a district. Downtown could be a district. In fact, the town currently uses a TIF model for the Fox Island Wind Project. Probably a lot of you knew that already. I didn't know that already. So like that's considered a district. So yeah, there's lots of interesting information. If anyone wants to tune into that, you can get a little 101 on TIF. Definitely could help with the downtown project, in our opinion. After our committee listened to him, we were like, whoa, maybe the town wants to look into that before this downtown project happens and the property values increase greatly, you know, after you find the money to do that. So that was a good timing with that last discussion. All right, the final part, is our findings report status. So that's like the home stretch of our committee. So what we plan to do is have all the survey data, the updated structural analysis, environmental site assessment info, sea level rise info, and then our committee's final recommendation to you guys in a findings report that we'll share with you guys and the community. We want to share with the community as well. How we'll do that, we're still talking. But we really want to wait until that environmental site assessment is done. Like I said, that's going to be 60 days from when they start it, supposedly early November. So that's really putting us into January, February till we hear from that. We'd originally planned to report to you guys at the end of the year in December. We still could do that, but our recommendation will probably be based on a lot of ifs, if this happens. So I guess what we want you guys to think about, and you don't have to decide tonight, is would you be okay if we bumped this, our final findings report, to January or February? And that's kind of dependent on if our committee is willing to continue meeting a little longer than we had promised them. We have a really solid group of people who have been there or been to most of the meetings. We've had a little bit of attendance issues from some, but we do have a solid group of people that I think would see it through, even though it's going past December. So totally, you don't have to decide tonight, but maybe next month when we do a shorter report out, I'm sure it'll be shorter, we could discuss, probably we won't be ready in December for a.
But if we have to, you want to wait for that report, so it may only make sense that we would wait for you to come back with that in January or whenever.
Yeah, we assumed you'd see it that way.
Oh, yeah,
Of course, wanted
absolutely.
to honor the fact that we said we'd be done in December.
No,
Yeah, everyone understands that, but
Yeah.
just putting it out there and
I'm glad you have a good group. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty large group, and we definitely, attendance has not been 100%, but I bet we're at eight-ish people, Gabe, you think, that are pretty solid?
Yeah, good. Great.
All right, I think, and yeah, I have a lot of the TIF info, and I sent this notes to, so you didn't have to write all this down.
Awesome.
And yeah, our meetings are available on the website if anyone's interested.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Any other questions or anything? I could do my best, but that was a lot.
No, I think you were very clear in what you said, and
Did anyone get a good feel for if people, we've had good feedback, people thought we did a good job reaching out and getting the info out there. Did the board have any feedback from people about, are we being transparent? Are we being?
I didn't hear
haven't-
anything negative.
Good.
yeah, that's
No news is so
the
nice.
way to put it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything negative.
Nobody's complaining. right?
Yeah, no news is good.
I
news,
think the amount of surveys that were returned is great. That's
I
pretty
thought-
good.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Not a lot of huge surprises in what people want, but it kind of
Exactly.
confirmed. And there's some new ideas there that are nice too, so
yeah.
awesome, thank you all.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Al.
much.
Sure, thanks. Hang out a bit longer.
You all set? Sam, okay, thank you very much. That was helpful.
Thank you.
7C, sea level rise committee update.
That's me.
Hi, Linnell.
Hi, I just wanted to give you a quick update from the Sea Level Rise and Climate Committee. We last updated you in July, and you had me back in July, and for some reason you have me again this month. But then I'm off the hook for a while. The tide trackers, our citizen science project, earlier this month, we had some of the highest tides of the year, which were luckily during the daylight hours, so we were out tracking. I got the privilege of going up to the North Haven Road and watching quite a few cars turned around and quite a few cars just kept going right through the water. I've shared our calendar, we have a Google Calendar showing when the high tides are, and I've shared that with Pat Montone because she thought that would be very helpful for the ambulance in knowing when to try to avoid that. One of the things that we realize is we don't know exactly when, at what tide, you know, assuming no storms, no heavy rain events, at what tide the road starts flooding, and when in relation to predicted high tide it starts flooding. We know that its highest time is about an hour past predicted. So for example, last week, the predicted tide was at 11:50, and I went up to the North Haven Road at 12:50, and it was still coming in, but it was pretty close to its highest. But when exactly the road starts flooding. So we're looking into whether a webcam or tide sensors, more about that would be helpful with that. We're developing some tools for sharing more info about our work and about climate resilience and some of the threats to Vinalhaven in the wind. The LED street light project should be starting soon, and I think they're predicting a couple of months to get that wrapped up, and as you know, that's gonna save the town quite a bit of money. Partnership with the Land Trust, the committee held a very well-attended walk at end of August with about 20 people in attendance. A lot of interesting questions, thoughtful questions were asked, and we were able to share a lot of good information with them. On the website, thanks to Gabe, there's an updated flood prediction tools section, which has an interactive map to help envision the effects of sea level rise and flooding, and a list of the highest predicted tides each month, and lots of other helpful information. And vinalhavenweather.com, the weather monitoring station down at the ferry, is producing a lot of great data, looking for some place to store that data, to host it, which we don't have at the moment. There's been some challenges with, for example, today sometimes I can only access it on my phone. Today I couldn't even access it on my phone. So they're working on that. It doesn't work with all browsers. And today it wasn't working with any browsers. We're looking into solar and battery backup because sometimes when the ferry uses the ramp, there's a power surge, which affects the weather station. And the other thing we're looking into is remote tidal sensors that could be around the island that would accurately give us the exact time and height of the tide, because the Tide Committee doesn't go out in the middle of the night to track tides, and so we've missed some doozies. So I think that's everything I have. I do my best to answer questions, and I've got Gabe who can answer everything. If not, I want to thank you guys, and I want to also thank my fellow committee members.
Thank you, Lynell.
Thank you, Lynell.
Thanks, Lynell.
Questions, anybody? Okay. 7D, Knox County reports for August and September. This is just a list of what they did. And that's that. And we'll move on to old business, which is none. And new business, Historic Down Street.
Yeah, a refresher, Historic Down Street got away in 2011 when we were concerned about what might become 30 Main Street, the formerly Knights of Pythias Hall, now occupied by Sherry's Kitchen. And we began raising money, and at the last moment, the owners escaped foreclosure, and we directed our attention elsewhere and wound up restoring the old engine house. We did some significant research on the building, put out bids to several contractors, and then undertook the restoration with one of our own serving as clerk of works. And 2 years later, we presented it to the town at a very lovely and fitting 4th of July ceremony honoring Bodine Ames, who had done so much to keep that building and other places neat and tidy. We want to continue that work, and we want to encourage the preservation of historic properties within an area described on the east by the Union Church and on the west by Legion Hall. While official recommendation will come from the Maine Preservation Commission and the National Register of Historic Places, such a designation is entirely honorary and carries no obligations on the part of individual property owners, nor does it place any restrictions on those individual property owners. Of course, it's been argued that this whole effort is kind of pointless, given that we're all gonna drown for long. But we are not persuaded, and neither are we inclined to simply throw our hands in the air and say, oh my goodness, we're gonna drown. So, in reality, the town's efforts to forestall the effects of sea level rise are aggressively underway, as we know, and there are efforts worldwide to curtail the effects of climate change, and the bottom line really is, who knows what Mother Nature has in store. Vinalhaven has a fascinating history, which many of us, islanders and seasonal visitors alike, are largely unaware, particularly the last 2 or 3 generations. And that will change if we're successful in securing this designation. Community outreach, displays of photographic histories, tax incentives for certain property owners, individual plaques detailing the history of individual buildings within the district that are historic, all will serve to call our attention to the really fascinating history that we all have here in Vinalhaven. The recognition we seek is the support of 51% of the property owners within that district, but that's a requirement of the National Register. In fact, we feel that's like kind of a half-hearted effort, and we'd much rather have the endorsement of 100% of the property owners within that district. And there are about 31 of those, and I've been assigned the task of approaching each of them, and I've approached half so far. And all are wildly enthusiastic about it and entirely supportive and willing to demonstrate their buy-in when the time comes, which will probably be early next year. And Vinalhaven, the town of Vinalhaven, is the owner of 8 of those properties within that district, or structures. And they are the War Memorial, the old engine house, the jail, the net factory, the library, the bandstand, the Gallimander, and the fountain. And so what we're seeking is a similar approval from the town for this undertaking.
2 of those town-owned structures are already on the National Register of Historic Places, the library and the Gallimander. So the town already is.
And 2 others are already within that district, which are the Star of Hope and the Moses Web Center, also already on the register.
Boundary.
So you asked me to give you a little bit of background about what needed to what needs to happen, but, so are you asking for the town to create a historic downtown district?
No, we're asking for the town's endorsement of our efforts to create a district.
Oh, that won't have any teeth. Oh, I see.
It has no teeth.
Oh, okay.
At this time.
Honorary. It's honorary.
It's honorary, yeah.
But it opens the opportunity for individual building owners, if they want to seek tax credits, grants, and other support for renovating their buildings, which they couldn't necessarily do if they weren't part of a historic district. So although it doesn't put a responsibility or a restriction on an individual owner, it opens the door for them to be able to access funds and tax credits.
Yeah, I'm confused. So I don't know, what are you asking the board for?
we're asking for the board's endorsement of our efforts, that's it, and then to secure the town's buy-in when the time comes, which will probably be early next year. We hope it'll be early next year. At that
I'm
time,
still not clear.
Marjorie.
Buy-in for what?
the requirements of the National Register are that 51% of the property owners within the district demonstrate their buy-in for the creation of a historic district that I just described. So what we're seeking from the town is a similar expression of support for the creation of this district.
Part of the application needs to include a list of the property owners.
I think I'd like to see the application.
Well, yeah.
Well, that won't be,
Well, the town owns 9 properties, is that the right number?
8.
Eight properties in this district that they're trying to create. He's asking for us as property owners
Mhm.
to give our approval to their efforts.
I'm not
Is
sure
that
if the
correct?
selectmen
Is that
can
my
do that.
understanding?
I'm not sure if the selectmen can do that. Would that have to be a town meeting?
That's what I was wondering.
Because it's not like the Board of Selectmen owns the property.
Right.
The town legislative body owns the properties.
Right.
well, that makes sense. So
So it would have to
this
be,
is just the first step then,
yeah, have to be a town meeting probably then.
the next town meeting opportunity, you can do it then.
On a ballot?
Yeah.
A local question on that? Big turnout next week.
So at this point then, I think probably what we're asking is that the town give their consideration to putting it on a ballot, making it a ballot item.
Or our town meeting.
Makes sense.
Question for you, Phil and company. So after I was just presenting about the net factory, like what if the recommendation is there's no saving the building and rebuilding? How does that, like, does the town get a slap on the wrist, like you're going against what you think, or?
No,
Yeah.
no, this is purely honorary.
At
And
this
we've
point.
definitely, in our discussions of this, we've said that the net.
Because you can do both. I mean, if a building isn't salvageable, like,
Right.
yeah, you can support one
Yeah.
thing and also
Yeah.
rebuild
No,
something.
absolutely.
And the site itself remains a historic site, even if there's not a structure there. Because the history of what was there.
Like it could still have a plaque.
Exactly,
And
it's all
say,
part of the
this is what
story.
was here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with all this being said, I think that we would consider having it, the consensus of the board would be to consider having it put to the town vote.
Yeah.
Okay,
Does that
Thank you
sound
very
okay?
much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Also, I do have a question, Phil, about the Galamander, though. We spent so much time a few years ago to try to, protect it from the elements and everything. Is that still something that should be done, is to wrap it still?
yeah. I
Did
think
we
so.
do that last year? Was
Yeah.
that wrapped?
It
No,
was not wrapped last year.
I didn't think it was.
But I
So,
think it should be done, yeah.
okay. I guess that was Public Works, correct? So we'd have to ask the Public Works to put it on their to-do list. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that all that being said, bye, guys. We'll move to 10, report of town manager.
I'll just have a couple of things. Do you have any objection if volunteers put up a lobster trap tree in the parking lot?
Only if it's French green Christmas lights.
We did get a refund from Eco Maine of $2,579.60 for this quarter. It's the rebate based on what they collect in revenue from different sources, and it's a very complicated calculation, but nevertheless, we did get a rebate on what we spend. We did receive an aquaculture lease application. This is for Salt of the Earth Sea Farm. It's located next to or near Hen Island, Calderwood Neck area. Do you know where I mean? Tomorrow, I'm gonna meet with the harbor master. We do have to fill out a questionnaire and get that back to them by November 21st.
What is it for, kelp?
I'm sorry, yes, for kelp. There's a 30-day comment period. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I can't talk.
DMR announces a 30-day public comment period during which interested persons may submit written comments or request a public hearing on the application. A hearing is optional unless DMR receives 10 or more written requests from interested persons during the comment period. There's an email that you can provide your comments by the deadline, if anybody wants.
Can I see that, please?
So it's important that if there are objections, that you need to get those comments in,
Where's the website?
because they're very strict about their rules. And it can't be, I don't want it there.
Right here.
It has to be,
A reason.
Who is the salt of the earth?
Gil Perry. He lives in Hancock, Maine.
Not sure. At maine.gov.
And I'll also put a notice in the wind in case people want to send comments and how they can send a comment. That's all I have. I'm sorry, my voice left.
I know, it's fine.
It's that time of year, Marge.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Does the town get any sort of revenue from granting applications like that? They just set up shop and have a business there? I don't know how that works.
If they pass the qualifications, then it's up to Department of Marine Resources.
Yeah.
This is the first one I've experienced in Vinalhaven. I've had a lot of them in Chebig, so I know how it works. And no, the town doesn't get anything out of it, and it's hard to object. So you have to really, if there is an objection, you have to act and you have to focus and you have to make sure that there's a hearing. So,
And
We've
should they-
had-
Did you find it to become a problem?
yes,
Yeah.
We've had two other
Should learn about it.
aquaculture leases,
I feel like I've heard rumblings and it's like, oh, this is coming, but. I
but
don't know much about it.
this is the first one that we've had
So
from
people
out of
should know
town.
about it.
But the other ones, one was North Haven and one was from people on Vinyl Haven, and they were kelp, also kelp
Yeah.
lines. And I don't think they created any problem for lobstermen or
Yeah.
scallopers, you know. Not with kelp, it was definitely not an issue,
Okay, interesting.
so. Anyway. Anything else on that? 11, report of members. Tom?
I do have something. I have a bit of a concern with the stormwater drains in front of the bank and in front of the grocery store.
Right.
Last meeting, we said that the camera hadn't been put in then, but we were told that the drains were broken. That's why
Right.
they weren't working. My question would be, probably it's not the right, but how do we know they're broken if we haven't put a camera in them?
I think the guy that comes, is the man that comes out and does cleans them.
we had them pumped out
Yeah.
or cleaned out recently, but in my experience, with all of, for instance, with the sewer project and other projects in the past with the parking lot, nobody could ever figure out where, we know that there's a catch basin, and we know that there's a pipe that goes across, but it's plugged, and we don't know where it goes.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well, I guess my concern is with the downtown project being in limbo and the stormwater project being in limbo. Those are two of probably the most heavily trafficked businesses on our main street. And with any minor rain, it floods in front of those businesses. And we're coming into a time of the season where it's going to be frozen water in front of those businesses, not
I
just
understand.
water. So I mean.
Do you want me to get, I mean,
I guess.
I've never had that done before,
Right.
so, I guess I could inquire about
I guess-
how that's done and what kind of companies do that?
That might be a good, I mean, I know from my prior experience with drains and garages, there are companies that come in with high-pressure water that feed down through a pipe and back flush any sediment that's in it.
Well,
Now,
we've
these pipes are
tried,
much bigger than what
we've
I've,
tried with the fire department.
well,
to
no,
do
they
that.
have a special unit
Mm-hmm,
that actually burrows down through
okay,
and pushes the sediment back.
Actually, they're kind of like the septic people have.
Well,
They have one of those nozzles that spray straight ahead as well as
This
the ones that
pushing
push
back,
back.
so it drives it through and clears any blockages. Now, I don't know whether, I mean, this is a much bigger drain than my my floor drains in my garages.
Yeah,
I
certainly.
mean, we're talking of, maybe a 6-inch drain, these are probably 8 or 10, I'm guessing, or 12, maybe they're bigger than that, but,
I know Millie would have more
right.
information
But I
on
mean,
that.
it's just one of those things that if we can do something, regardless of the expense, it's a liability to have ice in front of those buildings, and it's a public safety hazard to have ice in front of those buildings and water in front of those buildings.
An option might be, rather than, if it really is a collapsed pipe, you aren't gonna fix it.
Absolutely, but we don't know that, I guess. is the
Without
point.
saying, but maybe, putting in a small submersible pump in each one of those catch basins, and with a float on there, so that could be pumped out instead of, that might be the least
I mean,
expensive option, and it might,
I mean, right now, we're waiting for something that's totally in limbo.
yeah.
Well, certainly, I hate to say limbo, but certainly
Well,
it's
that's what-
gonna be,
let's be
it's
blunt,
gonna
it is what
be,
it is.
A while.
yeah. But I don't know that, a pump, where are you gonna pump the water to?
I don't have that, I don't have
You
an
know,
answer, but I guess I'm voicing concern.
No, I was responding to
Right,
Dawn's.
yeah.
I think we'll have to ask Millie
Yeah.
about it, don't you
Yeah.
think? She would be the person to talk to and see what she has to say. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. Marjorie, you can maybe make a note.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep,
I'll see what kind of companies do that kind of thing and see if I can get answers for you.
yeah. I don't disagree with what you're saying at all,
No, so-
but, if they're broken, there's not much.
I guess
Hopefully-
my concern is that we exhaust all possibilities before we just say they're broken, we're gonna wait till something that may or may not happens.
It's gonna happen.
Well, we're working on it, but.
We're determined.
Well, obviously, nothing's guaranteed, so
Okay,
that's all I've got.
all right, thank you, Tom.
I got a couple of things. Any update on the status of our permit application or the information behind it for the,
I don't have an update, and I talked to Brent about it, and Kevin is supposed to be working on it. Sorry.
because I'd like to, as we said earlier, about that flooding of North Haven Road, we can fix that, we really need to be doing it.
Mhm.
I saw that we got a couple old junk cars that have been crushed down by Coop's old place, so is that, we have people remove those, do we? Is that in progress?
Yeah.
Okay. Speed limit signs, what's the status of the speed limit sign replacement?
I mean, the fact that none of the, or most of them are inaccurate.
Yeah, I
mean,
thought
to
that they
the-
were gonna order some new ones that met the requirement.
I don't know what that is. I'll have to ask Public Works.
No question.
And that's it.
All I know is she reported at one point that with the paving, they were busy doing that, so now that's done. They can look to other things, hopefully. Leslie?
I have nothing.
Okay, I just want to say that we have a plan, the Parks Commission has a plan to start mowing or weed whacking, I should say, the Ball Ground Hill for sledding, because last year it was, or the year before, that was a
No,
issue.
no.
So it was hard if the grass is really tall. Saturday at 9 o'clock is the anticipated time to go and work on that. And Kay Kendrick has one student from the school doing community service, and hopefully other members of the commission will be there to help, and anybody would like to pitch in.
What time is that?
9 AM. If anybody wants to come with a weed whacker, come along, feel free, because this has not been done, so there's a lot of grass
That's a
there.
good project.
All righty, and that's all I have. And we'll move on to 12 executive session.
Need a motion.
1 NRS, section 405, 6A, a personnel matter to consider an applicant for the assessor position.
Is that a motion?
I'm sorry. What's that?
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Sorry, I did not
I'll take
say
this.
I'm making a motion.
Well, and, oh, I
What
can't